Hey everybody, welcome back to the Senators Roundtable. I'm Jacob Billington, joined by Dayton, Reimer, and Quinney as always. And for the first time in this show's history, we have a playoff episode. So, pretty exciting time in Ottawa. Not going as well as hoped, but yeah, it's been pretty exciting. What are your guys' thoughts on the first two games? Just really quick, you've been enjoying them?
Oh yeah, they've been great. First one was a little tough, getting trounced 6-2, but the second one, that was great hockey and very exciting. And I think the Senators showed in Game 2 that the Leafs can be beaten. They've got a way to be competitive and get back in the series.
Yeah, what about you, Dayton? You've been enjoying watching the Senators in the playoffs?
Yeah, I missed the game last night, but the first one was a lot of fun. Even with the bad loss, it was great seeing the Senators playing playoff hockey. It's the stakes were raised. It was, you could feel it. It was exciting.
Yeah, it's nice to see Tim Stützle, Brady Tkachuk, Thomas Chabot, Drake Batherson, like all these guys finally getting into some playoff hockey after years of misery. To be honest, it hasn't been a good ride up until now. So let's just go into kind of the first two games. So we'll start with game one. The takeaway from that was the penalties, the officiating, the discipline, whichever way you want to spin it. In my takeaways article for that game, I broke down each penalty, each of the controversial penalties at least. I think there was 11 total. 7 of them were just like, you get a penalty, you get a penalty at the end of the game, like Oprah Winfrey out there. And so the controversial ones, I mean, we don't need to get too deep into it. It's already a few days old, but what are your thoughts on them as a whole? So for those that don't remember, Tim Stützle boarding against Chris Tanev, it was a penalty in the regular season, but it wasn't like an aggressive hit or anything. It was just a hit in that position, therefore led to a penalty. Yeah, that could go either way. Cross check to John Tavares, that's a penalty for sure on Ridley Gregg. The trip on Drake Batherson was the only one I really strongly disagreed with. And there was a couple other ones, but like, was officiating really a problem in game one? What do you think, Paul?
I don't think so. I mean, there's a pattern here, right? What'd they get? 14 minor penalties? I mean,
something like that, yeah.
Come on, there's a pattern. It can't all be officiating here. They just took too many penalties in what was, bothered me was they were taking so many penalties in the Leafs zone. How do you take penalties in the ozone? That is beyond belief. Their power, and then the Leafs shredded their power kill. And so they got 3 goals on the power play, unnecessary goals. I think it was look, the Leafs have just got way too much firepower to be taking stupid penalties. And, I think it's a young team. Their emotions got the best of them. It's the first playoff experience the core certainly had. And, they learned a lesson. Discipline counts.
For sure. What do you think, Dayton?
Yeah. Officiating was a little bit of a problem, I think. There were some calls that they were calls, right? They definitely deserved to be called at some point because they looked like penalties, but maybe not in the first game of the playoffs. They were soft calls. They were definitely penalties, but did you have to call those? And I think maybe the biggest problem was the Senators' penalty kill. It was abysmal that first game. I think there was one time I saw it. It's like, oh, this is functioning. And then immediately they took another penalty and it fell apart again. That was the 5-on-3 goal. I think they killed a penalty for about a minute. And then the rest were just like, oh, they made it 10 seconds. Great. That was the biggest issue. The penalty kill was really bad. But the penalties they were doing, they just came out and were playing hard. They were, they pushing the guys around, and maybe you could credit their inexperience, but they don't know what they can get away with in the playoffs. And so they're pushing a little bit too hard. Maybe you could say it that way.
Well, I mean, let me defend the refs here for a second. For 2 games in a row, Leaf fans were screaming for 4-minute penalties for high sticks. Refs reviewed it and said no, that wasn't a high stick. It was a follow through. So, I don't know. It'd be hard to make the case that there's some sort of refereeing conspiracy here against the Senators. I leave conspiracy theories to the Leafs. Usually it's the Leafs that complain about the league-wide conspiracy and officiating against the Leafs. So I wouldn't want to see Ottawa go down that road.
No, and I agree. There wasn't any sort of reffing conspiracy against the Senators. The calls they were being handed were definitely calls, and they definitely did them. It's not like, except maybe that tripping one. That was a strange one. But you miss a call once or twice a game. That's not unheard of. But I just remembered that one, and the one that really ticked me off was, I think, I'm forgetting the player now. Maybe Claude Giroux, where he came over and no, Dylan Cousins. He came over, gave a cross check to Oliver Ekman-Larsson. Goodness, I can't talk. And to me, it looked like a tap. Like he's just like, hey, I'm behind you. And Larson drops. Like he got slammed in the back. I don't think he got slammed. But if you're looking at that, it's like, well, yeah, that's a cross check. Technically. In the playoffs, I don't know. So I wouldn't say the Senators are undisciplined, but I also wouldn't say that the refs have anything out for them. They're unfamiliar and they got punished for it, which is unfortunate.
Yeah, I think so. I think that was Drake Batherson that cross-checked him.
Was that Batherson? I thought it was Cousins.
Yeah. Cousins got ejected, or not a 5, but he got a 10-minute misconduct for cross-checking after the whistle. That might be what you're thinking of.
That might be.
I also just want to throw in, has nothing to do with what we're talking about, but you saying Oliver Ekman-Larsson or whatever you said always reminds me of Don Cherry and his complete blunder of pronouncing names. My favorite is Ron McLean tells him, oh yeah, this is young guy Oliver Ekman-Larsson, and Don Cherry goes, yeah, look at Oliver Lossum Tossum. Like that's just not even close. Like, yeah.
Well, you remember the classic one with Cherry years ago with Patrick Roy. Don McLean pronounces it like that, the full French pronunciation, and Cherry looks at him and says, "Who? Patrick what?" And he says to Cherry, "Look, his name's Patrick Roy. You don't call Roy Rogers Wild Wodges, do you?" So I thought anyway, that goes back a long, long time.
There's like a 22-minute video on YouTube of Don Cherry mispronouncing names, and I watch it at least once a year. It's hilarious.
It is too good.
Yeah, it's amazing. Anyway, so I don't think officiating was an issue. I do think that it all falls on the Senators' just immaturity in the playoffs. Like, they don't know what they're doing. They don't know. They've never been there. And if you notice, all of the players getting those penalties are the ones that have not been there before. It's not David Perron. It's not Claude Giroux. It's not Nick Jensen and stuff like that. So,
well, here's a question.
That was the biggest. Yeah,
I'll throw this out. I mean, one theory is that penalties. Teams get penalties, and a lot of them sometimes when they're up against a team that's better than them and they're outgunned, and a certain panic sets in. Although I will say, I'm not arguing here that the Senators are outgunned. I think they looked pretty good last night, but that could have been the case in the first game. They just panicked and took a lot of penalties.
Oh, for sure. I think the only penalty that I strongly disagree with from game 2 was Ridley Gregg. I don't know what he got a penalty for. I'm sure everybody in the world has seen the clip. He's standing in Anthony Stoller's crease, doing what Ridley Gregg does, just making everybody mad at him. He gets probably 3-4 good slashes from Anthony Stoller, punch in the back of the head, and then he gets just bodied in the crease. And he gets a roughing penalty. He didn't touch Stoller. He gave one cross check. It was not much of a cross check. I don't know if it would have killed a mosquito. I don't know where the penalty came from. mind you, whatever. Like, you get offsetting minors, whatever. But I just don't understand that at all. And let me pull it up right now. Sid Sexero, formerly of Tim and Sid, tweeted this out today. Let me just get it. I think it's pretty obvious why the Ottawa Senators didn't get a power play here. Officials were well aware that Ridley Gregg tried to end Stolarz' season with 5 minutes left in Game 1 and wasn't even penalized. Refs let Stolarz get his hacks in, no more, no less. That really bothers me. Whether it's true or whether it's not, that tweet bothers me. So for those that might have missed it, Ridley Gregg was breaking in to the zone. He really pushed towards the net. I think it was Morgan Riley is really battling against him, pushing up against him. Gregg falls, hits Stolarz' leg against the post, whatever. Did Ridley Gregg do that on purpose? Probably not. Might he have tried to crash the net really hard? Probably. I don't think he was trying to end Stolarz' season. I think he was just making a smart play heading towards the net. He knows he's not going to get a penalty for it. I don't think he's out there to hurt Stolarz. But if he does, I'm sure he's not going to be super upset about it. Also, why is Sid Sexero saying that a penalty should... Like, he's basically saying that Ridley Gregg gets a penalty for what he did last game. I think that's ridiculous.
Yeah. So Kelly Rudy, I don't know. You guys must have heard him. He kind of... Yeah. Rudy said I don't think he wasn't suggesting Gregg was trying to hurt him, but he kind of accidentally on purpose slid into him. And hey, if he's shaken up a bit, then that's hockey. But that's Rudy's take on it. He's been part of the goaltending fraternity, the profession. So I don't think there's a connection between what happened, with the collision with Stolarz, I think is the right pronunciation.
Yeah.
And now, I'm criticizing Don Cherry for improper. But no, I don't think there was any connection. What was the take on it? Was just Stolarz and Gregg going at it, and according to Kelly Rudy, the ref at some point said to the both of them, "Look, I'm going to let you have a couple of whacks, but if it continues, then you're both going to the box." And that's what happened. Getting in their crease. Look, and I love the way Ridley Gregg plays. I mean, he's entertaining to watch, and he has people infuriated at him. He's a rat in the finest tradition, and you need guys like that. I love him, but getting in the crease, he was right in behind Stolarz. I can understand the reaction from Stolarz.
Dayton, what are your thoughts?
They're not too different, I don't think. I've seen the clip. He's up in there, and Stolarz doesn't like it, and so he's whacking at him. And I think it's kind of that unwritten code or rule or whatever what you want to call is you don't touch the goalie. And he is right up in his grill. And, Stolarz is not having it. And so he's just like, he's giving it to him because the goalies can kind of get away with a little bit more because they're only locked to, one position, basically, right? I think there is a little bit of a, give and take kind of thing. If you're in his space, you can get whacked. And so, yeah, especially when he skated behind him, I can see why they might call that because that's right in his crease. And I think the offsetting minors was fair. I don't think it's some sort of, count from the previous game. Of course, I don't like it because Gregg was technically not doing anything, but also he was doing stuff. It's the slap shot into the empty net. He didn't technically do anything, but you're kind of messing with this unwritten code that people don't like it when you cross, and it really shouldn't be a thing, but it still is. And you could go on and on with that. So
But how's he getting a roughing penalty for standing by the crease? Like I don't get it. But whatever.
Well, you knew there was going to be offsetting penalties there. They were both at it. I mean, Stolarz and Greg, well, it goes.
I don't know.
Goes to, I don't know. I'm not saying the referee officiating was fair necessarily, but it does kind of argue against that there was some sort of a officiating bias, or is some sort of officiating bias against Ottawa. Hey, I'm taking both of you here. You're both getting 2 minutes. So.
Yeah, and I mean, people that are blaming the officiating, I mean, we have to talk about it for the first couple minutes of the show because that's the biggest story out of the first 2 games. But people that are blaming the officiating for the losses, people that are saying that it's rigged against Ottawa, like I think that's ridiculous. But that is the one that really stood out to me. That's like, really, like, why is he getting a penalty? But it is what it is. It's the NHL. Welcome to the playoffs. Sometimes things suck. But let's move on to other takeaways. So Linus Ullmark, what do you think about him for the first 2 games? 8 goals against, 4 goals on the first, or 2 goals on the first 4 shots of each of the first 2 games. Needs to start a bit hotter. Are you concerned about him moving for the rest of the series, Dayton?
No, not at all. It, at least to me, seems like it's less his fault and more so the defense and the penalty kill. Some of those shots were grade A chances that the defense let the Leafs have. There was a couple of, like, nobody was covering the first goal on the first game. He was wide open. He had a perfect shot, and he put it right above the glove. So, like, yeah, that's a great shot, and an NHL player should be able to score that, especially when they're not being pressured. And then you got the penalty kill. They're on the power play. They managed to get a guy open, and they don't have anybody pressuring him. They get it right in there. The second game was much better in that. And, you have Ullmark playing better, only letting in 2 goals. There was, of course, the early goal, but, that happens. I think it's mostly a team that is inexperienced in the playoffs, and they are making mistakes. It's going to happen. And I'm not blaming Ullmark. He seems relaxed. He seems, ready to bounce back, and he's looking forward to coming to, back to his home arena. So, no, I don't put this blame at all at Ullmark. And I think to do so is to forget that the team in front of him kind of let him down.
Well, when you think about the 2 regulation goals in game 2, both of them were cross-crease passes that deflected off something and went in, right? Like, you can't expect a goalie to make those saves every time. Sure, you want, like, one of those miracle stops from him. You want to be able to, like, oh my goodness, Linus Ullmark just saved this team. You want to see that out of a goalie you're paying $8.25 for the next 4 seasons. Sure. But you also shouldn't expect your goalie to make that save. So,
yeah, especially when it's bouncing off Clevin. Wasn't that one of those goals, right? Wasn't he right?
Yeah, it was Clevin or Jensen was one of them, and then the other one was off Morgan Riley's skate.
Yeah, I saw the EM.
Yeah, I don't know. It was one of them.
Well, I'll push back here for a minute on Ullmark. The Senators are going to go as far as Ullmark can take them. And if you look at Ullmark's history, he is not a playoff goalie. The stats I saw, he up until this series, he'd only ever played 10 playoff games, and his record was 3-7-0. His save percentage was .877. Goals against was .382. That is not playoff goaltending. So I would put the challenge to Ullmark. Now is the time for you to define yourself. And you can talk all you want about, he can't be blamed for this goal or that goal. But the point is, over the course of a series, he has to stand on his head, and he's got to steal wins. And I haven't seen any evidence to this point that he's capable of doing that. I think it could affect the confidence of the guys skating in front of him, the D. So now's the time he's got to step up, and he hasn't in the past, and he's certainly not now. His game, game one, he had a .750 save percentage, and it didn't get that much better in game two. He was .875. So, if I'm Green and the coaching staff, it's look, now's the time to step up. You will define yourself in this series. So.
Yeah, I think it's time for Ullmark to really make a statement. I think he overall has been fine for the first two games. Obviously, the first game wasn't good enough, but I have no worries going into game three. I would like him to be a lot better though. So,
I think if game three goes the same way as game 1 and 2, you might as well switch it, right? There's nothing left to lose. If you're heading into game 4 at home, put in Marilainen, see what happens. Because I think if the Senators are going to make this a series, Ullmark does have to elevate his game. I'm not blaming him for any of the losses, but it always was going to be an uphill battle, and he has to play above what he's been playing. I think he's been playing well enough, but you're going to have to be an amazing goalie to go anywhere in this playoffs. Like a lot of playoff teams ride a really hot goalie. And Ullmark just hasn't been a really hot goalie. He's been fine with an inexperienced defense in front of him. Because I think the only person has Jensen been in the playoffs before?
Oh, yeah.
I know he's had a long career.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's it.
So what you're saying is that the Ottawa Senators need to bring in Travis Hamonic?
Ooh, no. Never. I would never argue that. He is, but I think you can see some of the inexperience when it comes to playoff hockey. Because the rest of the 6 defensemen, the 5 guys there, have not been in the playoffs before. Which, I don't think Hamonic changes that because he hasn't been good through the entire season. Probably dating back for 2 seasons. But still, you gotta bring it together here a little bit.
Travis Hamonic only has 22 playoff games. I figured he would have had like 65. That's sad.
He played on a lot of rough teams.
So he did, but he didn't. Like he played on the Islanders throughout the 2010s. Not amazing, but I don't know. Then the Flames. Yeah,
the Flames through a tough stretch, though. The Canucks through a tough stretch where they had bits, but like he never was a game-changing defenseman.
Yeah.
At his best, he was a reliable defenseman.
Yeah.
So if you took Ullmark out for whatever reason, who do you put in?
Oh, Marilainen.
Marilainen. Okay.
Yeah.
Because you never know if you can find magic, right? And he's proven that he can capture it. So
could be.
Yeah, and I think with Forsberg, he's probably not coming back next year. Why give him the last game of the playoffs? Yeah. Like if you're facing being swept, why give him the last game of the playoffs? You got Marilainen, give him a playoff game.
Yep. All right. So you're not gonna give Forsberg any love for, in the last 10, 15 games of the season? Wasn't he one of the hottest goaltenders in the league? Maybe I got that wrong.
Congratulations. Like, I don't know. Like, do that for more than 10 games. Marilainen already did that for more than 10 games, and he's only played 12. Like, Forsberg has been woefully inconsistent for the last 2 seasons. It just, actually last season, he was pretty consistent, but consistently bad. So, yeah, I just think Marilainen's going to be one of your guys moving forward. Give him the shot. So moving, actually, I'll ask you both before we move on. Any other takeaways? Like, what's really standing out to you? Like, we already talked about Ridley Gregg being Ridley Gregg. Talked about Ullmark. Talked about the officiating and discipline and penalty kill sucking. But what else? Like, what else do you have to take away from the first 2 games, Paul?
One thing that has bothered me all day is that Domi goal. Domi was he was allowed to skate right downtown unmolested, taking a look at all the shops, and Batherson and Cousins did flybys when they should have drilled him, and it bothers me. I don't know why. Does it say something about the mentality? I mean, it's playoff hockey, and you can't let anybody. I mean, to shake your stick at him the way Batherson did. I don't know if it. What does it say about their mindset?
Well, I don't know if it says something about the mindset, but Drake Batherson needs to play the body there, or at least not do a flyby. Like, just get in front of him, stand there, do something. But I don't think it says something about the mentality. I think it says something about Drake Batherson is coming back. It's a 1-on-3 or 2-on-3 at that point. There's already 3 guys back ready to defend. I think it looked like he was more worried about getting into position to defend rather than actually play the puck or the body on Domi. It was just a bad read by him. And he said that today in media availability. He said that, like, terrible time to learn that lesson, but you live and you learn. I know to do better next time and all this stuff. Like, that was his second playoff game ever. It's a totally different tempo. I'm not convinced that it says something about the mindset of the team. I could be wrong, but I think it was just there's already 3 guys back. What are the odds that all 3 of them are going to pile up in front of Allmark and screen him? Pretty slim, but it happened.
Yeah. I mean, watching the first 2 games, look, no one believes the Senators are going to knock the Leafs off. Sorry. Nobody does. So what do you want out of this series? If you're Travis Green, if you're Steve Staios, what you want to see is probably 2 things. You want this team to demonstrate that they're not pushovers. And to do that, you probably need to take 2 games. I think they could walk out of the series with their head held high. And you would have a group of young guns, the core, then they would move to a higher level. They would take their development to the next level, and then you've got an eye on the next 2 or 3 years when the Senators do have a window on a Stanley Cup. Game 1 certainly wouldn't suggest that they're going to achieve those objectives. Game 2 did. They got some bad luck in the overtime goal, but I think arguably they were the better team for most of that game in Game 2. So, they need to build on that tomorrow night in Ottawa when they get home.
Yeah, so Dayton, do you have anything else you want to take away from the first 2?
Yeah, mainly just from what I saw in the first, they need to get, I think, more just pucks on net. I didn't think a lot of their scoring chances in the first game were very good. Clearly, they did better in the second, tied it up, put into overtime.
Adam Gaudette's goal with 5 minutes left was their first shot of the third period.
Yeah.
I didn't say it was good. I said it was better.
It was better.
It was better. They didn't look dangerous in the first game. They looked intense. They looked engaged. They didn't look dangerous. And so I think you got to get those guys right up in front of the net. I think you got to really push them. You got to do those Adam Gaudette type of things where you get in front of the net and you have a deflection that goes past him. The other one, the Brady Tkachuk goal, there was like 3 guys right in front of the net there. They just have to get in close. They can't be firing at range and then hoping they get a rebound. They just got to drive it because they're being outplayed. And so I think when you're being outplayed, you just got to get in their face. And, again, going back to Ridley Gregg, props to him for getting into Stolars's face. Unfortunately, it just resulted in a bad penalty. So I think that is something that the Senators can model and they can kind of, continue to build on.
Yeah, I'd offer two more observations. One is face-offs. They got to be better. They're just getting killed by the Leafs on face-offs. It's costing them. I mean, if you look at some of those power play goals, they were goals right off the face-off. They just lost them. And then the other thing they got to focus on is puck battles. They're just losing too many of them with the Leafs. So,
yeah. So, give me one improvement they need for Game 3. Is it Allmark? Like, it could be something we already talked about. Is it Allmark? Is it the discipline? Is it the face-offs? What's the number one thing that they need to focus on home ice?
Let's go discipline. Yeah. I think they just, like I said, I don't think discipline was the major problem, but you got to figure out a way not to take those penalties so often, because the Leafs have proven that if you are on the penalty kill and they are on the power play, they are going to score. It's almost an inevitability at this point. So don't let them do that. They got to play a little bit smarter. And again, I don't think they were undisciplined, but the way that they were playing was getting them punished. So they got to play smarter. And I think that's the biggest thing they got to take back when they head to the CTC.
All right, Paul.
I'd say Allmark. One simple question. Give me a reason, if I'm a Sens fan, to believe in you. That's as simple as that. He just has to stand on his head and do the impossible. You got to do that in the playoffs. Show us that.
All right. For me, it's Brady Tkachuk. I was promised that Brady Tkachuk was going to be a beast in the playoffs. He's been relatively invisible these first two games. Obviously, he has a goal that he didn't shoot on net. I don't even know if that counts as a shot on goal. It bounced off of one of the Leafs defenders. So, yes, he has a goal, but he hasn't been throwing the body like crazy. He hasn't been like getting under the skin of everybody. Game 2 was a whole lot better than Game 1, but I would like to see a whole lot more out of him. Like, we saw him in the Four Nations. He was so much better in the Four Nations than he's been these first two games. So that's my biggest thing for Game 3.
What about Stützle? Comments on him? I mean, he's...
I strongly disagree with Kevin Bieksa that him throwing 8 hits is a problem. I think that that's great. I think that that's showing how passionate he is about winning, how passionate he is about doing the best that he can. I understand the argument. Put your effort towards like the offensive play, score some points, whatever. I think he's fine. I'd like to see a bit more out of him too. I think he's been fine.
Yeah. Well, for what it's worth, one of the things I noticed last night when they after the Senators lost, they panned the camera on the bench, and most of the Senators had already gone to the dressing room. Guess who's sitting there looking forlorn and like he'd just lost his best friend? It was Stützle. So you can see the desire there on his face. So
he's always been super driven, so I'm not surprised that he is, taking it that hard. He's in a great position to do some damage, and it'd be nice to see him do more of that offensive stuff that he's good at, but he's also good at the defensive stuff too. That's why he went so high in the draft. He's an all-around player. So I don't think anybody had money on him being second in the league in hits through 2 games of the playoffs. Mm-hmm. He's got 13, which only trails Marcus Foligno, who has 23 hits in 2 games. That's just ridiculous. He has 11 and 12. So, excuse me. He's trailing anybody that is human, or he leads everybody that is human. I don't know what Marcus Foligno has been doing, but I don't know if he's a human anymore. With 23 hits in 2 games, that's ridiculous. So I like to see it. It's him showing he's passionate, that he wants to win. One thing I have been seeing online is that the Senators need to start throwing some big hits, which I agree with. They need some momentum-changing plays mid-play, not just a goal or a penalty or something. They need something to change momentum mid-play, or a fight or something like that. I don't know. They just haven't shown that either.
Well, I like their forecheck, though. They are dumping the puck in and then pounding the Leafs D. So if they keep that up and can amp it up a little bit, it might cause the defense to, take a look, right? Make a mistake. Don't know.
Yeah, I think it's a good I think it's been a good first 2 games for this group to be playing in the playoffs. I think it's been good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, last night somebody said, the Senators have got to play the best game of their season. And you know what? I think they did. I had rarely
After
seen
the
that.
first period, I agree. The first period might have been the worst period of the season, but the last 2 periods were great.
Yeah.
All right. Final thought for us today is going to be on the ticket process. So all the tickets were put out to season ticket holders. That makes sense. That's pretty normal. And then they were put up for sale to the public a couple days later. There wasn't many left. Season ticket holders could get up to 4, and they are non-transferable. They're also going for ridiculous prices now. I've seen anywhere from $400 on the cheap side to over $800 for one ticket. What do you think? Like, what are your thoughts on the whole process of the tickets? I mean, I'm going to give a huge shout out to Kevin Lee. He's been doing a fantastic job of making sure that it's Senators fans in the building. He's been facilitating some deals and making sure people don't get scammed. Unfortunately, somebody did make a fake Kevin Lee account and did scam somebody. That's really unfortunate. So make sure you're checking out who you're buying tickets from. Reach out to somebody for maybe a third party. But huge shout out to Kevin Lee for doing such a fantastic job helping the Ottawa Senators keep Senators fans in the building. But what are your thoughts on the process so far? Do you like it? Do you hate the way that things have been done and how expensive tickets have gotten? Is that just the Toronto tax? What do you think? I'll start with you, Paul. You're local.
Well, so I'm not sure. You mentioned they've made it so the tickets are not non-transferable. What I've been hearing is that the season tickets holders are actually selling their tickets to Leaf fans. When Montreal's in town, they'll do the same thing, and it's a way they subsidize or pay at least partially for their season's tickets. And I saw an exchange today at my beer league hockey. Unfortunately, we have a Leaf fan that plays with us, and it's terrible. It's terrible. We need better.
You got to give him some wax on the shins next game.
Well, yes, absolutely. So, but he looks at one of the guys who has season's tickets, and he just threw the bait out and said, I know you're not going Saturday night. Can I buy your tickets? And the ticket holder said, no, I've given them to family members. But it looked like you can do that. So expand on the non-transferable thing. Maybe I'm misunderstanding it.
Maybe I'm misunderstanding too, but I'm pretty sure that they announced that the season ticket holder tickets were not going to be transferable, that they were linked to your account. You couldn't send them to somebody. You couldn't resell them, nothing like that. So
okay.
It could just be like the public tickets that are transferable, or maybe there was just like a 1 week pause on the transfers for those tickets. I don't know. I'm not a season ticket holder. I'm not local. That's my understanding, is that the season ticket holder tickets are not transferable, or like the early bird tickets aren't.
Now, my Leaf friend who plays in my beer league hockey league.
Friend? You said teammate before. Now you're saying friend?
Yeah. I don't know. But, he's a greasy individual. He's going to, see the game Thursday night. He's got into a suite somehow. But to get in there, he's actually donning an Ottawa Senators sweater. So
good on him. I actually made a bet with some of my grade 6 students. They're all Leafs fans. There's a group of 3 of them, and they come into me and they start razzing me about the Senators, and they're like, "How'd you like the game last night?" and all this stuff. And so I made a deal with them. I had a last night's game, and I said, "Listen, you guys just colored a bunch of Toronto Maple Leaf logos, and you put them up on my wall. I'll leave them up there for the rest of the series. But if Ottawa wins tonight, I'm bringing 3 jerseys in for you tomorrow, and you're wearing them all day." Unfortunately, Ottawa did not win, but I hope that that deal breaks into next week.
Give them all detentions.
I'm gonna have to. You guys have to stay after school, right? Sends in 6 100 times.
That's just teacher punishment, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it is. I mean, it's crazy, right? I mean, you've heard the stories. Leaf fan, if you're in Toronto, there's no way for the average guy to get a ticket to see the Leafs play in in the rink. I mean, it's not going to happen. So Ottawa, even with the hotels and transportation, is still cheaper than seeing the Leafs in Toronto. And in a lot of ways, it's not so much the in the Ottawa region, you draw a radius of about an hour's drive outside of Ottawa, and outside of that, it's Toronto Maple Leafs or Montreal Canadiens territory, right?
Yep.
And it's these people from Gananoque, Kingston that are buying up the tickets and going to see the Leafs play. So it's a problem.
I will say, sorry, you go ahead.
No, it's a problem. I mean, Buffalo has the same problem, right? Toronto fans. So, yeah.
I will say I'm quite impressed with the Scotiabank Arena. It's lively for the first time in a long time. I don't ever recall hearing them this way, chanting "Brady sucks." Like I love that. Obviously, I don't love to hear the Brady sucks, but like hearing that from the crowd there, hearing all the "Go Leafs Go" chants, it's the loudest I've ever heard that building in quite some time, and I'm quite enjoying listening to it. And for the sake of hockey, like as a hockey fan, I like hearing that because it's always been suits and businesses and corporations that take up most of the arena, and it really sounds like there's fans in the arena this time.
Yeah, it's good all the way. I mean, if they can get resurrect that Ottawa-Toronto rivalry, it's good for hockey, right? Little kids are into it. It's good for the teams, the merchandise sales, and it's a lot of fun for the city. I think if Ottawa can get a win or two under their belt, you're going to see, Elgin Street is where all the festivities are, and that's going to be good for the city. To this point, I haven't seen the number of flags on cars the way it has been in the past, but then again, there hasn't yet been much to cheer about, so I think that could change. So
yeah. Well, let's hope for some better results for Game 3 and 4 in Ottawa at the CTC. Dayton, Paul, thanks for joining me as always. And thanks everybody who's made it this far into the episode. I hope you enjoy. I assume you have enjoyed if you've made it this far. That's a pretty good sign. So we might do a few more extra episodes rather than just weekly during the playoffs, assuming that they last much longer. So thanks everybody for checking this episode out. Make sure to check out thehockeywriters.com, the Substack, and the rest of the YouTube channel, all the series previews, some other podcast shows. So make sure you enjoy all that, and we'll see you next time.